Jiang began to touch his head with his hand, and could not help but feel confused since he had never heard about these materials. Now the only thing he could do was ask the master. His body had already been submerged in the liquid for quite some time, so using his finger, Jiang turned off the switch. Just then, a woman wearing nun clothes appeared and asked if Major Jiang was awake. Upon hearing this, Jiang's eyes widened in confusion and his attention focused on her, and he asked why she had just called him Major. The woman extended her hand to one side and explained that when Jiang was unconscious, the top 10 geniuses of Dazi's genius ranking had been promoted to the rank of Major. She closed her eyes and with a smile revealed that when Jiagang had brought Jiang to the hospital, almost all the tissues in his body were on the verge of death, and everyone thought that Jiang was not going to survive. She asked how Jiang was feeling and if he felt any discomfort. Our boy began to observe her and explained that he was completely healed. The woman approached the capsule and decided to collect the Divine Soul Liquid and Vital Liquid from the nutrition compartment. Since they were extremely valuable resources, their war district had urgently brought them from the capital just to save Jiang. She thought that since Jiang hadn't used all of them this time, they could keep them for other patients in the future. The woman approached the capsule, placed her hands on it, and her jaw dropped in surprise. Jiang came out of the capsule, started touching his head, and with a forced smile mentioned that after waking up, he was very thirsty, so he had drunk all of the liquid. Little Xiaojia was sitting on his shoulder. Jiang closed his eyes and couldn't help but blush and feel guilty, knowing that if children were not well behaved, then it was his fault. This responsibility could only be borne by the parents. Hu Kaishan entered the room, began pointing at Jiang with his finger, and realized that he was very lucky since he had recovered in just 1 week. The attention of our boy focused on his master. With a smile he began to wave. The woman approached Duan Feng, closed her eyes, and with a sad expression explained that Jiang had drunk all the liquid. Duan Feng's eyes widened in surprise, giving the order for the woman to leave. With a confused expression, Gu Kaishan asked if there was any problem, explaining that Jiang had only drunk a little bit of liquid. With a serious gaze, Duan Feng revealed that Jiang had drunk 10 doses of soul essence and vital essence worth 200,000 merit points. He didn't know whether to make Jiang pay for it. Gu Kaishan got angry and gave the order for him to pay it himself, since for Jiang it was not easy to obtain merit points. Then he approached our boy, put his arm around his shoulder, and with a proud gaze congratulated him for having drunk all the liquid, since even if a normal person soaked a little in it, they could live a long and healthy life. Jiang began to observe his master and a smile appeared on his face, realizing why little Xiaojia had drunk all the liquid. Gu Kaishan winked at Jiang and with a smile noticed that Jiang still did not understand the true value of merit points, revealing that anything he desired and that could not be bought with money could be obtained with merit points. Upon hearing this, Jiang's eyes widened with joy and surprise. He asked if he could exchange merit points for water of time. With a serious expression, Gu Kaishan said no, since that thing was a rare treasure of heaven and earth, and there were barely legends about it in the depths of the earth. It was something no one had ever seen. Jiang asked if he could exchange merit points for a stream from the river of time. Gu Kaishan said that couldn't be bought either. Jiang asked if he could get divine weapons related to time between level 3 and 4. Gu Kaishan scolded him and told him to stop dreaming. Jiang thought there was only one option left. Our boy's eyes filled with fear and confusion when he asked if he could exchange merit points for fragments of time. Gu Kaishan began touching his chin, turned his head toward Duan Feng and remembered that old Duan had some of those. Duan Feng's attention was fixed on them and his jaw dropped in surprise. With a serious gaze, he began to imagine the fragments of time and revealed that they were products formed after the collapse of ancient dimensional ruins. Currently in Dajia, only 2 fragments remained and they could be exchanged for 150,000 merit points. Jiang's eyes began to shine with hope. He approached Duan Feng, placed one hand on his chest, extended the other to one side, and said that he wanted the 2 fragments of time, and also asked if there was any way to get one more. Dan Feng extended his hand and revealed that there were no more. Since the ancient ruins were an independent space, time that could not be affected by external forces, The ancient ruins could only collapse naturally. After collapsing, the time within them condensed into a solid form, which was what was called fragments of time. He also mentioned that if Jang needed another fragment, he could ask the great dreamer when she returned. With a curious gaze, our boy asked where she was now. Duanfeng began to imagine her sealing rifts and explained that she was sealing the Ku Jiang rift. He was sure that she was about to return. It was daytime and the sun was shining high in the sky. Now that Zhang had recovered, Gu Kaixin decided it was better to leave the hospital and go home to rest, revealing that in 3 days the ceremony would begin. Duanfeng mentioned that the ceremony was important. He knew they should leave as soon as possible and prepare. Zhang decided not to go since he preferred to keep a low profile, but Gu Kaixin said it was already too late to keep a low profile since everyone knew that Zhang had killed the Spider Queen and defeated the lover. Zhang returned to his apartment and lay down on the sofa with his head resting on his arms. He began observing the ceiling and remembered that Little Nine and Xiao Jia were about to reproduce. Also, Xiao Jia could extract new abilities, and the ancestral tree of all things had also produced new fruits. He decided to resolve all this before the great dreamer returned. Zhang extended his hand and energy began to gather in his palm. He decided to first extract the ability of the red-shelled beetle. A system window appeared, revealing that the red-shelled beetle was a catastrophe-level calamity. It had several characteristics, the first called Supreme Attack Technique. It could use particles to condense, and by moving them an infernal vision could be invoked and execute a melody from the underworld. The power depended on the number of red-shelled beetles, and this technique had 9 levels. Level 1 required 129 non-red-shelled beetles to condense, and as one leveled up, the amount needed had to increase tenfold. Jiang extended his finger toward the system window, and his eyes filled with surprise, leaving him in shock, realizing that this was a supreme attack technique. He knew that if he used it now the house would be destroyed, so he decided it was better to try it against a boss. Jiang went to his sea of consciousness, and saw that there was a new fruit on the ancestral tree. He hoped that this fruit would be a nest with the capacity to house 10 billion insects. Jiang activated the fruit called Functional Fruit, obtaining a hive of insects with a capacity to house 100 billion insects. Jiang could not help but smile as the ancestral tree never disappointed him. While our boy's eyes were shining with joy, he extended his hand and insects began to emerge from it. With a smile he gave the good news to Little Nine, revealing that she could now move into her new home and reproduce. Upon hearing this, she became joyful and gave the order for all the insects to move into the new nest. Now that he had taken care of the insect matter, he took out the fruit formed by divine souls and began to observe it carefully. In the previous battle, it had been thanks to Zhaoi and the others who had collected wandering souls to water the fruit, and at last it had matured. Jiang activated the fruit of ability and it exploded until forming a divinity of the Jialai clan. The system asked if he wished to fuse it. Jiang's eyes began to shine with joy and his attention was fixed on the powerful energy emerging from it. If not for the ancestral tree, his sea of consciousness would have already exploded. He remembered that his master had once said that for an awakened one of level 9 to reach the 10th level known as divine rank, there was only one requirement. One must condense a divinity. He decided to fuse the divinity. The divinity entered his forehead, making his eyes begin to shine and causing him terrible pain. A new system windows appeared, and he obtained a new class called Supreme Warrior, Divine Level God of War, and 3 new abilities called Invincible Divine Fist, War God Transformation, and Imperial War Formation. Zhang clenched his fist tightly and began to stare at it intently. He had just obtained another divine class, now having 3 in total, although the name of it sounded exaggerated. This class was perfect for close combat. Now he could use it as a new ace up his sleeve. With this class in the body of the elephant god, he was sure he could surpass Zhang Wushuang's divine body. Then, another system window appeared revealing that Little Nine had given birth to 8 billion insects and Xiao Jia had a total of 6 million beetles. Jiang's attention fixed on the system window and his jaw dropped in surprise, realizing that the skill transformation to excess and its random acceleration and increase in quantity was too powerful. His insect army was taking shape. While Zhang was distracted, someone started knocking on his door. Our boy became curious, not knowing if the great dreamer had returned. Jiang opened the door and saw that it was Gu Kaishin and Duan Feng. Duan Feng began to touch his head and with a nervous expression revealed that they had brought the great dreamer, asking him to greet her. Gu Kaishin clenched his fist and began to look at him with a serious gaze, resting her hand on the door. The great dreamer entered Zhang's apartment and with a serious expression asked them to leave. Hearing this, Gu Kaishin's attention fixed on her and his eyes widened in surprise. She entered Jiang's apartment and gave them the order to leave. Gu Kaishin put his hands near his mouth and explained to Jiang that if one could not resist, one must learn to yield. If a woman was 3 years older than him, he should give her an ingot of gold. If a woman was 30 years older than him, he should give her an empire. And if a woman was 300 years older than him, he should give her an immortal pill. Duan Feng began to touch his head and asked Gu Kaishin not to drag him into death as well. The great dreamer rested her hand on the sofa and with a loving gaze called Zhang silly. Seeing this, our boy realized what Gu Kaishin meant. She began to approach Zhang. Our boy asked why her clothing was different from the last time. She began to smell Jiang and with a smile asked if he had become a god. Jiang looked away, and with a confused expression thought that maybe it was just the smell of the blood of the ancient god that had remained in his body. She sat on the sofa next to Jiang and started laughing, realizing that he couldn't have become a god since he was only in his 3rd transformation. Jiang began to sweat and thought it was better not to talk about condensing divinity, since after all he already attracted enough attention. She began to observe Jiang and with a smile asked why he was so nervous, explaining that she was just his sister and wasn't going to eat him. She had heard old Gu say that Zhang wanted fragments of time. Zhang asked if she knew any way to get them, to which she revealed that the fragments were no longer available in the territory of Daxia, but there was a place where they could still be obtained. She asked if Zhang had heard of the 3 overseas islands. Zhang said no. She turned to him and revealed that the 3 islands were located in the southeast of Daxia and were originally ruins. Upon hearing this, Zhang's eyes filled with surprise. The great dreamer explained that later they merged with the real world, forming 3 islands, Pinglai, Fangjiang and Yingzhou. 500 years ago, Daxia saw the birth of the first invincible being of 9 transformations, the human emperor. Not long after, another being of 9 transformations appeared, the Lord of Fire. The human emperor advocated for conquering underground caverns while the Lord of Fire defended non-aggression. They argued endlessly, and in the end separated unpleasantly. Later on, accompanied by many people, the Lord of Fire left Daxia and went to the 3 overseas islands to found his own domain. Using her power, she opened a rift and began to pull something out of it, revealing that the Fire Lord had taken many valuable things when leaving Daxia. Among them were the fragments of time. With a curious expression, Zhang asked if the Fire Lord was dead now. She pulled a churro from the rift and with a calm gaze explained that the longevity of the 9 transformations was up to 3,000 years. She was sure that the Fire Lord was still alive. She suggested to Zhang not to go take the fragments by force, since although the territory of the 3 islands did not compare with Daxia, they had been accumulating strength for centuries and had more 7 and 8 transformation warriors than Daxia. With a curious look, Jiang asked if they had never thought about returning to conquer Daxia. She broke the churro in half and mentioned that Daxia had the backing of national luck, and that the men of the Fire Lord would not dare act recklessly. Our boy questioned whether there was another way to obtain fragments of time. She began eating the churro, handed the other half to Jiang, and with a serene gaze revealed that although both sides had cut ties a long time ago, they were still competing against each other. Since they had separated 500 years ago, the best talents from both sides had challenged each other. Until 400 years ago, Daxia closed its borders and no longer allowed the other side to come. When Jiang asked for the reason, she took a bite of the churro and said that Daxia always lost. For 100 consecutive years, they were defeated without being able to do anything about it, leaving great shame behind. So they decided it was better not to compete anymore. But this year was different since Daxia had Zhang, and now the competition could be reopened. Jiang thought that if he won he could obtain the fragments of time. The great dreamer asked him not to rush his reopening, The competition also required following certain steps. He would receive notice when it was time. However, according to the rules, both sides must send a talent under 30 years old. In this aspect, Zhang was at a disadvantage. A smile appeared on Zhang's face since he didn't care about this. As long as he could get the fragments of time, he was willing to do anything. The great dreamer stood up and said that it was good to have ambition, but one should never underestimate others. She decided to leave and asked Zhang to stay at home and not go outside. She began staring at Zhang and revealed that in the list of celestial-level assassins, several powerful warriors had accepted the mission to kill Zhang. People from various countries had come to kill Zhang, so she asked him to be very careful. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part,